begin with the quick summary of Kurukshetra September edition. Now this focuses on agriculture research. No doubt in India we have agriculture as the staple life for most of the people, and you have a significant proportion of GDP which comes from agriculture. Now recently we have seen the agricultural infrastructure fund that has been established with a cost of nearly 1 lakh crore. We also aim to have storage units and selling at higher price, reducing the wastage and increasing the value addition that could be done. Similarly, you have agricultural credit societies that have come up which aim to provide sorting of the units, providing go down facilities and storage facilities. Cold storage is again important. So what are the main components that we need to understand under any agricultural setup? You have the food that comes, the feed for the animals, the fodder for the animals, the fuel that is being obtained, the fibers that could be obtained, and finally the timber. So these are some of the primary usage for the agriculture that has been seen. Since 1929, that is nearly 91 years ago, we have Indian Council for Agricultural Research that has been established, the history of which we would understand in a while in detail. The idea of this council is to guide people for agricultural research, mainly for agronomy and agricultural engineering courses, to guide, manage and coordinate the various agricultural activities. So various central agricultural universities, nearly 75 state agricultural universities, 5 deemed universities, 2 central agricultural universities are all part of it. Also, in the period of 1950s to 2020, we have seen 5 times increase in food grains, 10 times increase in the fruit cultivation, that is the horticulture. You have fisheries which increased nearly 18 times, milk increased 11 times, and egg production increased nearly 52 times. So we have seen a significant increase in our figures for agriculture. Now, whenever we talk about agriculture, rejuvenating agriculture has been very important. So green revolution was one of the very good examples. We have witnessed a numerous positive aspects around green revolution, but there were negative aspects related to waterlogging issues, salinity that have been seen in the regions of Punjab and Haryana. Also, growing of the crops like paddy in the region of Punjab and Haryana, which is rice, we have seen a lot of water being taken, and as a result these areas are now water stressed. You have lack of water. So we are now moving towards smart agriculture, which we would understand in a while. Scientific methods, innovation have been a plus to the agriculture as and when we have proceeded. So we have various national missions and policies like National Food Security Act, National Nutrition Mission, which has been linked to the agricultural production in India. And we have, as we said, we have seen a significant jump in the production from 50 million tons to nearly 285 million tons, a significant increase of nearly 5 to 6 fold which has been seen. Now ICAR, which is Indian Council for Agricultural Research, has seen nearly 718 Krishi Vikas Kendras, which aims to develop farmers at rural centers. You have numerous seed hubs that have been created. Nearly 220 crop varieties have come up, of which 100 varieties are climate friendly, 15 varieties are stress tolerant species. Some of the developments, let's say you have the Pusa rice, which is the Pusa basmati, which is having the longest kernel of the paddy that has been seen. Similarly, you have sugarcane varieties which have come up with Sugarcane Breeding Institute at Coimbatore, which can generate much higher proportions of sugar as compared to the conventional varieties, and this sugarcane crop is CO-0238, the version of the sugarcane that has been seen. India ranks first in terms of horticulture. We are aiming to double the farmers' income by 2022. The idea is to provide more agro-based industries associated to it, to increase the production, increase the productivity, and also India is the 8th largest agricultural exporter that has been seen. The first in the globe is Europe. So definitely we have a long pace where we can move forward with agriculture and associated exports. When we are focusing on developing agriculture, organic farming is very, very important. So we are focusing on Paramparagat Krishi Vikas Yojana, which focuses on organic farming mainly for crops other than wheat and rice. So wheat and rice are part of the MSP, the minimum support price program of the government, and now we are trying to bring in other crops in the ambit of minimum support price so that farmers have a decent amount of income. Now this was one of the recommendations which had been given under the Swaminathan committee report. Now, as we said, India contributes to 17% of the GDP. It's the largest producer, consumer and importer of pulses. We produce nearly 25% of the pulses, import 14% and consume 27%. We are one of the largest producers of jute, second largest in terms of wheat, rice, sugarcane, fruits, vegetables. And what we need to focus on is the 4 pillars of sustainability, that is making food available, accessible, easy utilization and bringing in stability. Now when we are talking about providing the fertilizers to the farms, it is the NPK, the nitrogen, phosphorus and potassium. The ratio should be 4:2:1. However, we have seen this ratio is significantly mismatched in the states like Punjab and Haryana, where it is nearly 22:5:1. So we have the exact values that are quoted here, but the idea is we are significantly using higher proportion of fertilizers than recommended, which in short run is good, but in long run it affects the productivity of the soil. So when we talk about moving to the Paramparagat Krishi Vikas Yojana, we are focusing on green yard manure, compost, vermicompost, and this would increase the organic matter. Soil health card schemes have been released since 2015, which assesses the quality of the soil and provides the exact nutrient which is missing in the soil. So you can add only the specific nutrient rather than adding all the 3, the NPK fertilizers. Again, under agriculture, we are practicing different types of agriculture. The most common one that we would discuss right now is the conservation agriculture. Conservation agriculture talks about maintaining the soil as such, minimum disturbance of the soil, zero tilling and a permanent soil cover with diverse crop combinations that could be used. United States, Brazil, Argentina are some of the leading examples for the same. And sometimes in the areas of Punjab and Haryana, we have seen winter smog issues in Delhi. Why it is so? Because of the burning of the residue of the crop. Now this burning of the residue of the crop releases gases like carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide and toxic gases into the atmosphere, leading to pollution. So we are also moving towards alternate mechanisms for the same, and we are promoting agricultural mechanization for in situ crop management that could be seen mainly in the regions of Punjab, Haryana and Uttar Pradesh, the Indo-Gangetic plains that we could say, or the highly fertile belt of India. The idea is to prevent any kind of soil and nutrient losses that could be seen. The next important concept is integrated nutrient management, where we are trying to optimize the soil quality, maintain soil fertility, integrated pest management, where we are talking about physical, chemical and biological methods for pest control. We are also introducing legumes. Now leguminous crops are important, firstly because they are nitrogen fixation. Because of the nitrobacters present in the root nodules, they act as nitrogen fixation, so you require less of additional nitrogen fertilizers that should be added to the soil. The next is they are closely growing and have a dense canopy. As a result, they reduce the impact that is seen because of the soil erosion. So the issue of soil erosion reduces. Also, these legumes act as weed suppressant. So they do not allow the weeds to grow rapidly into the soil, and as a result the nutrients would be meant for the plants that are actually growing. And again, the deep root system is very, very important because they can capture the nutrients from deep within the soil. Again, important aspects that we would talk about is smart agriculture. Now, what do you think is a smart agriculture? It is nothing but using agriculture or doing agriculture with more precision. Now, how you can turn up with more precision? The interesting aspect is either you can bring in IoT, the Internet of Things, you can bring in GIS technologies, remote sensing, GPS technologies, you can bring in blockchain, nanotechnology. The sole idea is creating a systematic strategy to deal with the climate change to produce the best surviving crops with the minimum use of fertilizers, pesticides, and minimum damage to the soil that could be seen. So for this, resource conservation is important. So we call it as the RCT technology, and it is based on 4 pillars. Now what are those 4 pillars? The 4 pillars of the RCT technology, very, very important. That is the right source, right time, right dose, and right place. So all these 4 parameters, if they are correctly matched, you would have the minimum input loss that would be seen and a best performance that could be witnessed. Also, we are aiming to bring in more social, ecological, and nutritional security that could be seen. Now, as we said, innovations have been part of any development and any civilization. So, innovation in the field of agriculture are important, specifically for country like India. So, what we have is the smart fertilizers. Now, smart fertilizers could help reduce the phosphate consumption by 1/4 and increase yield by nearly 10%. So, on one hand, we are reducing the consumption of fertilizers, but on the other hand, we are increasing the total yield that is being seen. Similarly, we have practices like leaf color chart, which talks about the proportion of nitrogen that a plant requires, and this is a technique which has been developed by International Rice Research Institute of Philippines. Similarly, we have NDVI sensors that is the normalized difference vegetation index, which basically talks about need based nitrogen application that could be done. Similarly, we have soil plant analysis development that monitors the nitrogen status to improve the top dressing of the rice. We are also talking about urea usage. So, climate smart solutions and neem coated urea, which dissolves at a much slower pace as compared to a normal urea is seen, and therefore you would have higher shelf life that could be seen and more retainability that could be seen. Automation in agriculture is again important. We are using new generation of herbicides. So we have some of the examples quoted and marked here. So what are the herbicides which are used in a specific crop? So there could be a direct question, which of the herbicide is used in pulses and oilseeds, in maize, then in rice. So we have the complete list here. This is something for you to remember, very, very important for match list question. So you would have to memorize these in any case. Then you have techniques which focuses on leveling of the land. So laser leveling could be done, direct seeding or transplantation of rice could be done, raising of the beds for planting could be done. Now raising of the beds basically saves the crop from excess moisture and saves water by nearly 30 to 40%, which is significantly higher. Similarly, we are focusing on integrated farming system technologies. Now some of the statistics again for precision farming is here. So we have a lot of methods which we have devised, which could be very, very useful for basically understanding the production and creating a good market linkage between the farmers and the buyers. Investing in cold storage is a good strategy, because ultimately the shelf life of the agricultural produce needs to be increased, and we need to bring in crops that could meet the market demands, mainly for ready to eat snacks. So what could be the common crops that could be seen? So potato, which could be converted into potato snacks, or potato chips that could be seen. Similarly, you have mango pickles, tomato for sauces and soups. Then you would have pomegranate, which is used for digestive churns. Then you have onions and grapes that are commonly preserved. So these are some of the crops that are commonly used, fortified for let's say the oatmeals or any other purposes. So the idea is to bring in more and more development with the technological innovation and precision farming. So that is what is smart agriculture all about. But if we go back to the traces of our history, we have seen that in Nalanda and Takshila, we had courses on agriculture that were offered. Similarly, agricultural education was part of the Arthashastra. In Arthashastra, we have seen that cotton seeds were preserved using cow dung and fishes were used as manures in the soil. So those are some of the ways under which we can understand that even historically India has been an agricultural land where traditional ways of preservation and conservation have been very, very important. Now, if we look onto some of the evolutionary statistics, we would see in 1829, the first camel and ox breeding farm started in Karnal. Then you had agricultural college that started at Coimbatore. Coimbatore, as we said, is also known for Sugarcane Breeding Research Institute as of now. The Bacteriological Research Institute for Veterinary Sciences started in Pune. Then you had the Imperial Agricultural Research Institute, which started in Pusa in Bihar. Later on, it was known as Pusa Institute and finally converted into the Indian Council for Agricultural Research, that is the ICAR, which now has its headquarters in New Delhi. So again, we have AGRI, which is the Agricultural Research, Education and Extension. So it's not just education, it is focusing on research programs as well as extension. So that is fishery, animal husbandry and all associated factors going hand in hand with agriculture. So some of the statistics of this institutes that are offering agricultural courses are already given, and as we said, supply chain management is really something that is very, very important. Now in agricultural trade, export and import play major roles. So top 5 exports from India are cereals, fishes, meat, coffee and sugar. Now cereals are mainly exported to Iran, Saudi Arabia and Iraq, fish to US, China and Japan, meat to Vietnam, Malaysia and Egypt, coffee to China, US and Iran, and sugar to Iran, Sudan and Somalia. Again, India, as we said, is the 8th largest exporter of agricultural produce, the first largest being Europe, and we have numerous commodity boards, for example, coffee board, rubber board, tea board that are there. So those basically talk about the rules and the regulations that needs to be followed. When it comes to import, we basically import a huge amount of vegetable oil, mainly from Indonesia, Argentina and Malaysia, edible fruits from US, Afghanistan and Benin in Africa, edible vegetables from Canada, Myanmar and Mozambique, beverages from UK, US and Singapore, and then coffee from Vietnam, Indonesia and Sri Lanka. Again, whenever you are talking about trade, tariffs play a major role. So there could be either tariff or non-tariff barriers that could be there. So tariff barriers, we could see highest barriers from Korea and Norway. Now these nations put in high barriers in order to protect their own agriculture. Again, the non-tariff barriers talk about certification, registration, testing, licensing, packaging and so on. So there are various kinds of barriers that we need to understand that exist. India, in the recent period of lockdown, came up with Kisan Rath app. Now, this is an app which basically brings an agricultural movement of agricultural produce across India. And also, we are moving towards export subsidies. So, peace clause is something that is very, very important for you to know. Now, what comes under peace clause is interesting. WTO subsidy of 10% of the total value of food grain production for developing nations, and in case of the kind of breach of action that is to be done by other members must be avoided under the peace clause. So what happened was, India is one of the first to invoke the peace clause that has been seen, and for breaching the subsidy limits for rice recently. Again, when we talk about agriculture, what are the major inputs that we require? So seeds, fertilizers, then we have agrochemicals, we have irrigation that is required, we also have equipments and machineries that are required. When it is fertilizer, as we said, we are now moving towards organic fertilizers, neem coated urea rather than the normal urea. This is very, very important. It was already a question in 2019 exam. Then we have seeds. We are moving towards hybrid varieties of cotton, oil, corn and other major seeds. Also, when we focus on smart agriculture, LED light becomes important because we are now trying to grow crops under LED lights as an artificial light that could be seen in the regions where you do not have ample of sunlight that could be provided. Farm management, nanotechnology and artificial intelligence are something that are closely linked. So here we have a kind of historical timeline for the development of agricultural research in India. So it started with Lord Mayo, where you had the Department of Agriculture that started to be established back in 1869. Then you had the Imperial Bacteriological Laboratory in Pune in 1889, the Imperial Agricultural Research Institute by Lord Curzon in Pusa, which later on converted into ICAR, the Indian Council for Agricultural Research, which was established by the Royal Commission on Agriculture. S. Radhakrishnan report talked about establishment of rural universities on the lines of the land grant college philosophy of United States. We have the PRECOM, which is the project for intensification of regional research on three things: cotton, oilseed and millets, that came into being. Also, we had coordinated projects on maize, later on extended to rice that was seen. For rice, the major varieties was Padma and Jaya varieties that came up. We had the first state agricultural university established at Pantnagar. The first Krishi Vikas Kendras came up at Puducherry, and then we had the mission for oilseeds, expansion of oilseeds and liberalization of seed industry that are seen. However, despite of all these, agriculture in India faces severe challenges. Now this is low productivity, low levels of mechanization, small and fragmented land holdings between the sons. So there was a father, then divided the land into two sons, the further the land divided into two further sons. So as a result, what happened is, over the generations, the land parcels started to become smaller and smaller, and the number of people feeding on the same land parcels started to grow. So moreover, what we could say is the agriculture could not be mechanized because of the small land parcels that could be seen. There is imbalanced use of inputs that is being seen, the degradation of natural resources because of rapid urbanization, industrialization and modernization, and very high dependence on monsoon. So because we are a rain-fed agricultural country, monsoon cropping becomes one of the major issues. Also, over the years, we have seen a significantly high proportion of agricultural spending that needs to be done for research in agriculture. In India, it's only 0.4%. However, countries like China have 0.5%, and in Brazil, it's up to 1.8% for agricultural research. So the spendings going for agricultural research in India is significantly low. Definitely more research and development needs to go into agriculture. Also, as we said, the small holdings are very high. We have nearly 47% of land holdings which is occupied by small farmers, of which you have nearly 76% being occupied by women, with nearly 12% of the land holdings that are there. And private partnerships needs to be encouraged in order to bring in more revival into the existing agriculture. Bringing in better yield is again important. So bringing in subsidies, bringing in education, better infrastructure, network, road connectivity is something that becomes very important. The last topic that we would be understanding today is the issue of NABARD. So under NABARD, we have seen that you have monthly household income of nearly 8931, which is seen for agriculture, and a livelihood of around 7269 rupees, which is seen in the non-agricultural households. Also, we have seen a significant proportion of population under insurance, which is significantly less, only 14%, crop insurance only at 7%. The debts that are being seen are high, with 47% debt in rural areas, and 88% of the people have bank accounts. Over the last 1 year, we have seen an average saving of 18,000 that has been seen by a rural person in an agricultural or a non-agricultural area. The next important is water productivity. Now, water productivity comes under three heads. The first is physical water productivity, the second is economic water productivity, and the third is the irrigation water productivity. All these three water productivities are very important. Now, physical water productivity talks about the crop output per unit of the total consumptive water that is used. Irrigation water productivity talks about the amount of crop unit per unit of irrigation that is being given, and the economic water productivity talks about the value of the crop output that is being derived per unit of the total consumptive water that is being used. So as the name suggests, economic is dealing with the value, irrigation is dealing with the crop output of irrigation, and physical is dealing with the total crop output that is being seen. So those were some of the key highlights in the field of agriculture. As we said, the historical timeline is important. What is conservation agriculture, smart agriculture, precision agriculture? Very, very important. We have talked about the resource conservation technologies, the RCTs, then the ICAR, the Indian Council for Agricultural Research. So these are some of the key topics that you need to remember for your Kurukshetra. Very, very important topic for your GS as well. We would be covering many such interesting topics in the upcoming sessions. So stay tuned. Have a wonderful day ahead.